I kind of feel like what you're doing right now is almost fishing for me to try to say something that's going to, like, I'm going to skip a beat, right? Like, I'm going to say something fucked up. That's kind of what I think that you're doing right now. My chat is pointing out that they feel like you're being disingenuous right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how else to explain it other than the way that I have. Right?
Yeah.
And this is me trying to be like as nice as I possibly can be, because I kind of feel like that chat is right now. And that either A, you are acting like you're not as smart as we have seen you be in other situations when it comes to conversating, and you're being disingenuous with me right now in an attempt to try to garner some type of information out of me to try to paint me in a certain light that would only support your status on the left, right? That's what it seems like. So what do you think then? Do you think I'm transphobic?
It's easily my farthest right-leaning audience is on Facebook. My kind of moderate audience or a mixture is on YouTube, and then by far my farthest left-leaning audience is on Twitch. And that's that seems to be how everybody congregates on the internet for content.
Mm-hmm. I mean, all right, I understand a lot of this. I guess I don't know. Maybe this is too hot of a take. I'm just wondering why. A lot of people are trying to say that are essentially implying that it's a virtue it is an aspirable goal to try and create a space for a lot of the people who have these types of political views online. But I mean, I don't know, we talked about CTV. CTV, for example, a lot of people who ended up seeing, he had, for example, a debate with another trans YouTuber, Twitch streamer, about essentially trans people in a variety of ways, and literally made the argument that, or analogize trans people to dinosaurs. And I think that something close to the exact quote was calling trans people abominations or monstrosities or something,
because it would be the same argument that they made at Jurassic Park.
What do you mean? Wait, what are you talking about Jurassic Park for?
Well,
how are trans women not women?
Well,
and besides, you're
gonna ask the question, shut the fuck up.
I will say I am deathly curious about Jurassic Park right now. I would love you to explain to me about this.
Now, it's the same argument that would be had at Jurassic Park, right? Now, were the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park dinosaurs, or were they genetically mutated monsters that were put on for entertainment purposes? They were not dinosaurs, right? And we knew this if we watched the movies. And in this case, just because you changed your body and you did not develop it naturally doesn't make you the same. It makes you similar, but not the same.
Oh, no one's saying that trans women...
You said there's a separation of the mind and body, which I said, yep, there is a separation of the mind and body, in which case, right, which is...
And wait, what do you mean they weren't dinosaurs in Jurassic Park?
They weren't. They were genetically mutated monsters that were mixed with frog DNA.
Is that what they said? Does anyone remember the line, genetically mutated monsters from frogs?
Yeah.
They used the frog DNA to fill in the code, not that they weren't dinosaurs.
They weren't dinosaurs.
Welcome to... it said, welcome to the world of dinosaurs.
Did you not see The Lost World?
Not welcome to the world of monsters.
You didn't see The Lost World, did you? You didn't see The Lost World, did you? Because they went into that in detail, right? But
I can't believe we're going over movies, which are totally fiction.
And instead of actually recognizing how terrible that was after the fact, he's actually gone on and if you look at his stream, the last time I checked, he actually has an emote and an infographic on his Twitch stream that's a dinosaur with trans colors, right? That's not a degree of introspection. That's rubbing salt in the wound, you know? It's hard for me to look at people like this and be okay, yeah, that's totally a political ideology that deserves to be platformed. My inclination is to be no, that's fucked up. You know, if you have a political ideology where those kind of views are intrinsic to that kind of belief, then it's it's hard for me to see the merit of wanting to include you in the space.
So I hosted that conversation, actually. So I do remember this a little bit. I don't remember the word monstrosity being used. I don't remember abomination. The exact word or quote, it was he went into a long spiel about what exactly the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park was, and his argument was that they're not actually dinosaurs, they're genetically mutated or reptiles or frogs of some sort. And he tried to, in some manner, say that he was making the argument that trans women are a third category, which is different than just women or man, and that's the stance I believe he still holds to this day, is that there's a separate third category, and it's not really an argument that I completely understand. But I don't remember Abomination being said.
Do you think it's that benign when he like literally you can go onto a stream right now and he has like a trans-colored dinosaur like that does not come across as like a super
it's because he got a lot of shit from it. Obviously, Vadim Newquest, also known as Creationist Cat, picked up a clip of it and it like spread on Twitter, and like obviously he got a lot of attention from it. So he basically like took the moment to like make a like trans dino emote and a trans dino this and that, and because. Yeah, that's why he took the moment for.
It's not. I mean, like that doesn't like that may explain it. That doesn't excuse the behavior, though, right? Like that. Like in that case, he could have had like a moment of like introspection and realized, oh shit, I kind of fucked up here. But he kind of like doubled down and actually like dug his feet in further. Like that.
Well, yeah, because he thinks that it's a legitimate. Where I said privately that like when somebody asked me, I said I believe like that like CTV has like transphobic beliefs, right? And then like that was brought up. And basically, like, there was this huge thing, and eventually got made public, right? And then I was confronted on it publicly, and like, I wasn't going to change what I genuinely thought about it for like niceness, to keep cordiality about it. I wasn't going to lie about it, and I said, yes, I do believe that he has transphobic beliefs. It's not really an argument that I completely understand. But I don't remember Abomination being said. But
do you think it's that benign?
So do you think that's your argument represented correctly?
I do, actually. I told him, I've said many times that with the ruling from the Supreme Court and with all the conversations that I've had, that gender, as it's defined, is a spectrum of masculine and feminine traits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So since that's the case, the law's not considering it at all, right? The fact that it's still in government forms is probably problematic, right? We should probably go ahead and take that off of government forms. But with the Supreme Court's ruling of trans individuals cannot be discriminated against on the basis of sex, there is a much better argument to be made for trans to be a third sex than there is for the gender conversation, which is where their conversation is rooted is in gender, right? Whereas I'm not even addressing that.
Oh, you were talking about sex. But wouldn't they still be technically like the same sex regardless of what gender they are?
Well, biologically, that's how that works, right?
Well, if they I could be wrong in the way that I'm using this terminology, but the way I understand it is like I know that we all pile it into transgender or we use that label for it because one way or the other, they are going to present as a different gender either way, and we don't want to separate the two. But from what I understand, there is like a technical difference between transsexual and transgender, that like transgender just means that you transitioned to another gender, whereas transsexual means that you transitioned to another sex. And like, though we don't want to like differentiate the two socially, the way that you're using it is assuming that all people who transition their gender are transitioning their sex as well. Right?
Well, it sounds like to me that if you keep it real simple, right? Male, female, trans, right? And then underneath the hierarchy of trans in the language would be transsexual and transgender, right? So those two things would be underneath the third sex category as trans.
But that's
right?
only
And
if they
transsexual-
actually
but
change
listen,
those things.
Listen, transsexual is the language that was what I grew up with and with a lot of older people are familiar with, right? So you got to try to figure out a way to bridge the gap of language that are like my age and older, right? versus the languages that was just developed in the 1990s by a German sexologist, and that's how we end up with the language that we have today being used. You got to figure out how to bridge that gap. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of younger people just getting pissed off because older people don't fucking understand.
Yeah.
Right? So we start the conversation off from there. And since the Supreme Court ruled that trans individuals cannot be discriminated against off the basis of sex, there is a much better argument to be made for trans to be considered a sex as a third sex, that everything, well, I don't say everything, but like all of these separate gender definitions that are, I mean, all the separate gender, you know,
Pronouns.
what's the word here? Well, like all the different ones, right? Because gender's the spectrum, right?
Mhm.
So all the different ones that are there then are they're in the transgender category underneath the umbrella of trans. And I don't see how any part of me thinking that is transphobic at all.
I don't think it's transphobic. I think she's just saying that, like, the Supreme Court said that trans people are a protected class based on sex.
Well, they said that trans individuals cannot be discriminated against off the basis of sex, right? And that goes back to Title IX, I believe it is, right? There was a court case that came up. I think it was like 5 months ago, right? So when the Supreme Court ruled that way, made it pretty.
Oh, they were saying that, like, if they present as a different gender than their sex, you can't discriminate against them. So if they wanted to, like, use, say, a trans woman wants to use the woman's bathroom, they're saying, well, you can't say that if they have a penis, they're not allowed to use the woman's bathroom, even though they're presenting as a different gender. You can't use sex to discriminate against them.
Okay.
So, my point earlier was that, like, when we're, like, transgender people in general don't always actually transition their sex. Lots of times they'll still have the same biological sex while they present as a different gender.
Let me ask you this question. Then wouldn't the same thing, the same motivation that would help an individual come to the realization that they are trans be the exact and then go all the way through the procedures to become transsexual? Wouldn't that be the same lines of logic and the same types of, like feelings, interactions, experiences with their body that help them understand that they're trans, right? On both sides, whether it be the sexual or the gender, it should be the same lines of thought, the same, kind of close experiences to help these individuals understand that they're not as they seem, right? So I don't.
Yeah, maybe.
So since that kind of already lines up, like the logic experience, like all these things, it certainly seems that whenever I'm sitting there thinking about it, that my logic still holds because they're having the same kind of experiences. The only difference would be is that one that has had a medical procedure and the other has not, correct?
Yeah, so their argument would be that that gender and sex don't actually align, that's just like a social construct to say that because they have a vagina, now they want to shave their legs and carry a purse and put on makeup and grow their hair out long, right? Like, that's not actually innate to their genitalia. That's just more a social construct. And if they want to present as that gender, it doesn't necessarily have to correlate with their genitalia.
Okay.
So, like, I get
that. Okay, was like why they want to do that. Cool. Like, okay, like.
Yeah, I'm all I'm saying is that if if Riley feels as though someone who's trans can be a woman but also have a penis, that they wouldn't necessarily have anything like mutated about them, and that I think overall she
Right.
takes
And
this.
nobody made any type of comparison to anybody being mutated, right? That was specifically about the dinosaurs. The only correlation between people and the analogy was simply that you can be similar but not the same, right? That's literally the only part of that argument that would be used there for that part of it. The rest of it was me explaining how I come to this similar but not the same, right?
Yeah, but you're talking
And you know
about.
what? Frankly, I've had quite a few trans individuals that have came by and told me, "Hey, dinosaurs are huge, huge in the trans community, and we absolutely love the fact that there's an emote out there that is the T-Rex, because now you've been able, through a joke, right? Because that's what it got turned into after Vadim made the video, right? Because before that, it was just a conversation. As soon as Vadim decided to make the video, right, that's when it became the joke, right? The meme, right? So, since that's the case, the best way for me to do it was to then just own the fact that there's the meme, right? Because I didn't make the video.
Yeah.
So, if somebody has a real problem with the video being made, because I didn't make it, right? Then they need to go talk to Vadim. And I don't think Vadim sees anything wrong with what he did. And because the comparison between the dinosaurs and the trans individuals is not direct, right?
Mhm.
And it's not at all. Anybody that listens to the video can see that it's not a direct correlation. It's just the idea of something being similar or the same, right? And this is where maybe a little bit of context in the conversation would come to bear whenever Tiffany was trying to tell me that they were exactly the same as my wife, right?
Right.
So that's how we get there in conversation.
Yeah. So the only part that I would like when it comes to gender, like, do you believe that, like, when I say that, like, carrying a purse and shaving your legs and wearing makeup, like, that all of these things are inherent to your genitalia? Like, do you disagree with that part?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think that if I am born a female, that that I would most likely automatically want to shave my legs, wear makeup, and
Tom, do you shave your legs?
no.
Have you ever shaved your legs?
Yeah, but it was like for a sports
Well,
thing.
What kind of experience was that for you? Did you enjoy it?
No, it was weird.
It was weird, really.
Yeah.
I think you're telling me a lie.
But that doesn't mean that my
Tom.
experience.
You're lying to me right now. You can tell you how I know? You tell you how I know? How do I know, Tom?
Say that again.
How do I know that you're lying to me right now?
I don't know.
You're going to tell me that shaving your legs was weird and then it felt weird? That's what you're going to tell me? You're going to sit there and tell me, how long did you shave your legs for? Was it just for swimming?
Yeah.
How long did you do that? Like for a period of time?
No, like a couple weeks, and then I realized like I didn't think it actually made a difference.
Oh. Did it make a difference?
I don't think so.
So you didn't enjoy the smoothness of your legs? Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, I don't know.
Is that what you're telling me? Are you telling me that the first time that you climbed into bed, right, and you rubbed your legs together, you didn't go, "Oh man, what have I been missing out on?"
I mean, I shave my head and I enjoy the smoothness of my head. Like
I'm just asking a simple question, right? Because, brother, I've been there, right? I know it's nice. It's okay for you to say it's nice.
Yeah, I'm not denying that I might have enjoyed. I was.
As a matter of fact, I still shave my legs.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I find it to be very nice, and my wife loves it. Are you kidding me? Smooth on smooth is where it's at, man.
Yeah.
Right. So here's the thing, right? If I was transphobic, right, or anything of the like, you're going to have a hard time making that case. Hard time. And anybody else that's out there, right? Riley herself included, whenever we've had conversations on panels, right? And I'm listening to what she's saying about trans healthcare, and when she's telling me that the ultimate conclusion of gender dysphoria is suicide, it is only rational for me at the point of diagnosis to think that at that point I want to protect that individual and remove their weapons rights, because I don't want them to be able to have the ability to hurt themselves if the ultimate conclusion of gender dysphoria is in fact suicide, right? So this is where, during that argument, I don't know what Riley's deal was, but it seems like there was a similar deal going on with Riley, that there was another individual, and not too long after that debate that Riley was on, that's when the meme of, because going for a walk in the woods with CTV came up, right? And then they put out the meme from a picture of Brokeback Mountain with me and Riley on the heads of the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that came out, right? And frankly, I don't get all up in a fucking tussle about any of that shit.
Okay.
I feel like there's a whole lot of people that got a problem with me want to talk around me instead of talking to me, right? If you got a problem with me, you can come talk to me.
Sure. I don't disagree with that part, but I'm a little confused. So when I ask you like about gender representations being inherent,
right? I don't understand what about the gender conversation you are getting, right? Like it's a spectrum, right? And
it is a spectrum, but I would still say like for the most part, there's just men and women, and like those are the pronouns. Like he, she, him, his, yeah, his, him, his, yeah. He,
have
him.
you met Empress?
Empress? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, have you met Empress?
I don't think so.
Empress came on the show last week.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, pointed out during one of the drunken debates that my community was the one that was putting down somebody that was trying to be transphobic in my chat.
That's
right?
good, but like, so I can have a friend.
But my community is a direct reflection of me.
That's the argument that I made in this panel. That is the argument that I made. Is even if you so listen, if I have a friend who is like, I'm almost positive that he's not racist, but one time he says the N-word, right? Well, I'm not all of a sudden going to stop and think like, oh man, he's racist now. But he did say something racist. And I think that that's what she was saying, is that you said something that she perceives to be transphobic, and that doesn't make you a transphobe. And in my argument, I say like, well, if you disagree with parts of his argument, like, does that mean that automatically like none of his rhetoric should be there? And I think her point was just like that, well, trans people who are offended by it aren't going to want to hear it. But my point is that you can say transphobic things without actually being a transphobe.
Okay.
And so that would be Riley's argument, is that
so what's the definition of transphobic?
Something that I mean, obviously it's like people who are afraid of trans people.
I'll look it up. No worries, I'll look it up. Transphobia, according to Merriam-Webster, a rational fear of, aversion to, or discrimination against transgender people.
Mm-hmm.
Right, now, explain.
All right, so I think that she would say that this is crap, you just said the word, now it's left me already. Can you read that one more time? Discriminating. I say
irrational fear of, aversion to, or discrimination against transgender people.
Yeah, I think that she would say that that is like discriminating against trans people, to say that.
How is it discriminated against trans people?
Well,
or transgender people specifically?
so to say that they should be a third sex would be like non-inclusive, right? If they're wanting to be seen as a gender within society, but we say no, we're going to put you into a third box instead, that would be like excluding them from what it is that they went through the transition to do, right? Like it would defeat the purpose.
Explain to me how a trans individual, right? And perhaps maybe this is a question more appropriately aimed at Riley, right? Explain to me how a trans individual that started off life as a male or female come to the realization that they are trans, right? And then start their trans journey in life, right? How it is that somebody that grew up with the type of experiences that would have to come along with what I've said is like the revelation that, hey, like I'm trans, right? The best way I've had it described to me. So they come to the realization that they're trans, right? How is that life experience supposed to be similar enough to one of the other two sexes when the other two sexes don't have that type of revelation? That certainly seems to me like there's, again, a much better argument for there being a distinction made, right? Okay. Simply because of the life experience and the choice that person ends up coming to, right? The understanding. I say choice, but it's not choice. It's just the revelation that this is the way this individual is, right? And it's not the same as the biological, and that's okay. Or the main what has been male and female over time, and then now because of who knows, right? But individuals are coming to understand themselves better than I think that they have had a chance to in the past, simply because of just how hard life was in the past. You know, fuck, it wasn't just 100 years ago. People were lucky if they had a oil lamp, right, to be able to read a book by the damn campfire, right? So we as human beings are nowhere near as technologically advanced as we are today. So people are getting to know themselves a little bit better. And because of that, it's still the different life experience, the revelation. I feel like not to point it out would almost do a disservice to the individuals that are experiencing it, because it is unique, right?
Mm-hmm. But okay, so when we look at like sex, like normally we try to define sex just based on genitalia, right? Like if we started looking at other things like hormones, estrogen, whether or not you can have babies, whether or not you create semen, like we would have all sorts of varying levels to where some people didn't do it at all, some people did, and then we wouldn't exclude those people from that sex or from that biological category based on those attributes. So we would just say like, okay, if you have a vagina, you're female. If you have a penis, you're male. If somebody gets the surgery done to where they now have a vagina or they now have a penis, we would just say, okay, you are now that sex. There's not really like any other factors in there that would exclude them from being that sex. So there's no reason to make the third category at that point, right? Like I understand that, like I agree with you that like because they have had the transition, it is different. But the way that we categorize it,
but that goes right back to what I said to begin with earlier, is that the same line of logic and the journey, the revelation that they're trans would still be the same whether they had the surgery or not.
It's not about whether or not they're trans. It's about whether or not they're a man or a male, and whether about they're a woman or a female. Not like, I don't think they care whether or not you put the label trans on them or not. It's about whether or not they are accepted as what they want to be seen as within society.
I don't understand what's so hard, right, about what I'm saying, right? I accept people for who they are, right? Right?
Yes.
Okay, so I accept people for who they are. This is my understanding of this issue based off of the people that I know that are experiencing this issue and
Mhm.
what my understanding is of it.
Right. And
Right?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm trying to understand why we would have a third category in the way that I just explained it, where like,
Because of everything else that I've already said.
but I don't think that those change whether
That's
it-
okay if you don't think that. That's what I think.
right. But that, like, if you could explain that again, that's
I've already explained it, man.
All right. I guess I'm just not understanding them, and that's okay. Like, it's not, again, this wasn't my beef, and like it wasn't. I'm trying to explain to you my best understanding of how I understand trans individuals, and you know, I can't argue for Riley or anything like that. I just know that my understanding differs from yours, and I haven't heard anything that would actually change that in any way. It would,
The difference here being is that my understanding of this is also rooted in the Supreme Court and their most recent court decision that these individuals should not be discriminated against on the basis of sex.
right.
Right? So
Right.
since that's the case, unless you've got something else to go on, I've got the law to cite.
But that doesn't mean that all of them. I don't understand. Again, I like when it comes to the bathroom issue, like if a trans woman wants to go into a woman's bathroom, but they have a penis, that law is saying that you can't discriminate against them based on the fact that they have a penis. I'm not understanding how you're interpreting this to where you think that the law is backing up your argument. Can you break that down for me?
Okay. Did the ruling say that they could not be discriminated against off the basis of sex?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. How does this connect to your argument? I've already agreed with that part. I'm not understanding how this connects.
The Supreme Court already ruled that they can't be discriminated against off the basis of sex, right?
Right.
Which is where I have said, and I'm repeating myself now, right? That these individuals cannot be discriminated against off the basis of sex. So there is a much better argument to be had for trans as a third sex than there is for transgender. Like this spectrum of masculine and feminine.
There are laws for men and women, though, that they can't be discriminated on the basis of sex as well. Right? Like sex in general is just a protected class.
Yes. What are you missing here?
If somebody has a penis, their sex is male. If somebody has a vagina, their sex is female. I don't know where the third sex comes in.
Trans.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a minute. Can you say that again?
Trans.
Right,
like,
trans.
Transgender.
Transgender.
We're really just I feel like we're looping back around here, man.
So are you, again, I differentiated between transsexual and transgender earlier, though. So are we talking
Like
about?
my chat's now thinking you're being disingenuous.
I'm not understanding. If you're saying that transgender and transsexual are the same thing, is that what you're saying?
The same thing? No.
Then when you say trans, which one are you talking about? Transsexual or transgender?
Both.
Okay. Okay. I guess I'm just not gonna understand. I'm trying, man. I really am. I maybe your chat thinks I'm
trans, right?
Mhm.
At the top, and then transsexual and transgender.
Just
right?
two. There's just
Because
two, transsexual and transgender.
that's what I'm aware of right now.
Right.
Right. So then, like, off of transgender would be the various spectrums of. So
I'm sorry. I think I lost you again. Let me take the screen share off. I think it's eating up all my bandwidth.
anyway, man, I'm really. I kind of feel like what you're doing right now is almost fishing for me to try to say something that's going to, like, I'm going to skip a beat, right? Like, I'm going to say something fucked up. That's kind of what I think that you're doing right now. My chat is pointing out that they feel like you're being disingenuous right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how else to explain it other than the way that I have. Right?
Yeah.
And this is me trying to be like as nice as I possibly can be, because I kind of feel like that chat is right now. And that either A, you are acting like you're not as smart as we have seen you be in other situations when it comes to conversating, and you're being disingenuous with me right now in an attempt to try to garner some type of information out of me to try to paint me in a certain light that would only support your status on the left, right?
Mm.
That's what it seems like.
I think with lots of right wingers, it seems like the option is either they're like somewhat right or they're just completely wrong. And I think like somewhat right in leading their audiences in a somewhat right direction where I guess trans people are able to get along better within society when they're around these people is probably better than nothing at all. I don't think that like excluding him altogether is the answer, because like sometimes people are wrong about some things and can have like a good platform outside of that. Yeah, look, what I defended you on the panel. I didn't say like, yeah, man, he's a freaking transphobe, right? Like, I gain nothing out of you saying something transphobic. There's no reason for me to bait you into that. And as much as I defend right wingers and conservatives, it would do nothing but hurt me and my narrative on a consistent basis on my show. I do try to like understand people's point of views, and my chat isn't understanding yours, and your chat's not understanding mine. I think there's just a barrier here to where we're just not understanding each other. I feel like there are dots that where there's just not a line connecting them with the logic that you've presented. And I'm only trying to ask questions to understand it. But at no point do I want you to say something transphobic. And if you did, I would try to understand why and try to like get to the bottom of that as well. Like, there's no history of me ever doing anything like that, or even calling people out for like, somebody says something racist. I don't say, dude, you said something racist, that's bad. Like, no, I like start talking to them about like the rhetoric that they use and the way that they say things, and maybe come to an understanding about what it is that they're saying. My issue is just only with the third.
So then let me break it. Like, I try to keep things simple, right? Because there's a lot of who are you talking to?
Me?
Yeah.
I was vaping.
Are you acting like I can't see your stream right now?
I didn't talk to anybody. I vaped.
Oh.
I was talking to you. It's like a couple seconds behind.
All right. So if you want to understand, then try to keep it as simple as possible. As simple as possible, right?
Mhm.
Because the gender conversation is losing everybody because of masculine and feminine traits that can be on a wide range.
Yeah.
To include shaving your legs as being a part of that, right? Back in the 2000s, guys that dressed nice and, took care of themselves were called metrosexual.
Yeah.
Right. So reality is that sex, who you're having sex with shouldn't be the first thing that you're identifying yourself with, right? It should be a whole list of other things that, that you've done, right? That,
Yeah.
What are you about? Like you opened a charity foundation. You know what I mean? Like I've helped out my community. I served in the military. I, opened a small business. I employ people. I go to church. I participate in Sunday school. I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you introduce yourself as the gay person, like you're missing a lot of identity in your life.
Yeah. So it's not like it can't be something that's important to you, right? But for other people in society, who you're having sex with doesn't really matter, or even who you would have sex with. Like, just doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a personal thing and this is where, like, this kind of language with other things like sexual harassment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you really start kind of looking into language there, mentioning those kinds of things could be viewed as sexual harassment because now you're bringing that into the conversation.
Right.
So from a legal standpoint, trans being a third sex and still not being able to be discriminated against off the basis of sex, right?
Oh, okay. Now I get what you're saying. Okay. All right. So my understanding of the ruling was just that they were like adding trans people to say that they also cannot be dang it, I don't know why this word keeps bouncing out of my head, but like they can't be discriminated against as well, just like men and women, just like anybody else. Trans people also cannot be discriminated against. And so you're saying because they're adding that in there, it's saying just like men and women, that means that they wouldn't technically be men and women because men and women are already have those protections, but they're specifying trans people now have that protection for sex, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes sense then. I wasn't understanding. Yeah, my understanding is that they're just saying like this is also afforded to them and they were specifying it because if a say a school wants to say, a transgender person says, well, okay, I'm a woman, so I'm going into the women's bathroom. And they say, well, actually, no, we don't have women's bathrooms. We have female bathrooms. And so you would have to be a female in order to go into that bathroom. Then they feel like that's discriminating against that trans person. So they're like specifying that you can't discriminate against them and that you would have to do it based on gender instead of sex.
Well, this is where probably the conversation is going to end up going to unisex bathrooms, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Right. Which is really, and let's be honest, right? I think this has been a part of the feminist movement for a long time. right? They wanted to be able to break themselves away from men, and now they're wanting to enslave them, right? Because they want to have individuals, stalls, right, for everybody, so that their men have to stand outside, to defend them, right? And clearly, I'm memeing right now because,
Yeah. I mean, look, I have the same like initial
but,
inclination.
that's kind of where the conversation's heading, though. It's just the unisex bathrooms. It's either that or a unisex or a family bathroom being available.
Yeah. I have like the same exact inclination, and this is just me personally, like I'm not putting this on you, but like when I hear that, I immediately think like, well, I don't want women in the bathroom with or females in the bathroom with males. Like I don't trust them, right? But when I've had this conversation with other people, they'll say something like, well, do you think like men are inherently like vicious or attacking people or raping people? Like, do you think that like there's like this horrible rape culture in America? And I'm like, no, I don't think that. And they're like, well, then why would you think just because they're in the bathroom with women, all of a sudden they're going to start raping them or hurting them in some way? And like, I get that. I guess just like it's my nature to be like protective of women, and it still like feels weird, man. But I don't have like a good argument against it. Like, oh, I don't like the idea of unisex bathrooms, but
Well, it's either that or we just need to have private bathrooms altogether.
yeah, like one at a time. Put up a bunch of.
Well, I mean, that's where that's probably where it's just going to be completely individualized. Is lines at the bathroom is going to become a reality, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is from corporations, right? But the law's been, can't be discriminated against off the basis of sex. So that's where we're at with it.
Okay, yeah, we're just translating that differently. I didn't. That's why I didn't understand before.
Well, it's just like any of the other language when it comes to the law, right? If they don't mention the language from the get-go, like for example in the Constitution and the 14th Amendment, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have anything in there at all with regard to the sex of somebody that was voting until they said males, right? And then that's where we had to amend the Constitution later to include everyone else, right? So
yeah, but if I'm not trans, I believe that they're still allowed to stop me from going into a woman's bathroom because I'm not trans. And so like they had to add that, the Supreme Court had to add that just so that it was afforded to trans people, because if you're not trans, you're still allowed to be discriminated on the basis of sex when it comes to things like bathrooms and changing rooms and dressing rooms and stuff like that.
Well, then I guess maybe the thing to do would be to create the trans bathroom then, right?
Maybe. Again, if they're wanting,
actually, I mean, if that's where the logic is, right? So there should be trans bathrooms. So we need to tell Walmart and Best Buy and Target and all these stores they need to have a third bathroom.
But wouldn't that be discrimination based on sex?
How would it be? Well, here's the reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the store themselves are going to identify their bathrooms off the basis of sex, right? Because that's where you're at with this argument, right? Is that it's not like man woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's male female, right? Because wouldn't the language in this be like man woman would be considered gender, right? And the somewhere on the gender masculine feminine traits, and then if we're going by male female, right, for sex, then trans would be the third sex, right?
hmm
And then there's a third bathroom. Because if they're already discriminating, males and females to separate bathrooms, then creating the third bathroom would be equally it would be creating a space for them to be able to feel safe in, and would be no different than the separating of the sexes that has been for the last, well, few millennia. Well, maybe not few millennia, right? But I know in Rome they had, like, if you watch Gladiators, like some of the old stuff, they had like their open shitters, and anybody could just go in there. Or did they? I don't know.
I mean, I don't think that we would know most of the
I mean,
time.
I don't think that at this particular moment in time that all the science is settled, right? I think there's still lots of science is being discovered every day. This is where this conversation is where it is today. Who knows what we'll know tomorrow, right? The
Yeah.
important thing to know is that I want everybody to be able to be as happy and as prosperous as they possibly can be. And I'll sit here and listen and talk to anybody about whatever ideas that they want, and I have no problem doing that.
Okay. Yeah. I still disagree with like the idea of a third sex, but I understand your logic now. I mean, if you want, I might be able to set up a conversation with Riley sometime.
If Riley wants to talk to me, Riley knows how to get a hold of me.
Okay. I got you. No.
Okay.
I would like, so yeah, I would say like transphobic are people who are like purposefully trying to like harm or discriminate against trans people. Like, say like I accidentally misgender a trans person, I don't think I'm transphobic for that now, right? If they correct me and then I continue doing it, well, now I'm transphobic. Like, that's pretty obvious. But if I disagree with you on trans issues and you're saying, well, like, I think this is hopefully what's best for trans people, and like I talk to trans people and this is what they believe is best for trans people, I don't know how anybody could interpret that as transphobic.
I think probably what I'm going to do from now on is just whenever I need to have a me represented in a transgender conversation, I'm just going to pull from the wolf pack.
What is that?
Right?
Oh, have a
what is that?
Have a trans person do it?
Trans individuals in the wolf pack.
Yeah.
Right? Empress being one of them. Samantha Banana, right?
Yeah.
I'll just have them just knock out whoever the hell needs knocked out. I mean, it's just that simple, right?
Yeah.
You know? So there's a lot of things inside of the trans community that I am not intimately, like, to the letter detail, like all the way deep into the science of all of this, right?
Yeah.
So because I'm not, I wouldn't be the person that would be like, oh yeah, I know what's best for everybody. But I'll sit there and listen to people when they're telling me about stuff, and then I'll ask them questions and go, well, I'm considering this over here as well. How do we make this work together? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we need everybody working together, not just part of us, right? And it can't just be one community over here saying, well, fuck everybody else. Well, if that's the fucking case, then we've got a pretty big problem. We got to work together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, if you did defend me earlier on that panel, I appreciate it.
I mean, it went with my overall point to say, like, we're trying to be more accepting of right-wing people, and when you guys disagree with them, you're immediately saying that we need to push them off, and that's like that's the exact opposite of what we need to do. So if I just sat there and was like, yeah, like let's make it sound like CTV's a bad person and let's get rid of him, it would be the exact opposite of what I had just said about keeping right-wing people on and making them feel more welcome. But all right, I got to figure out if I work in the morning. I might have to be at work in a couple hours, and I have no clue. So you're cutting out. I can't hear you.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, a bunch of weird noises kept going. Whoop, whoop, whoop,
Yeah, that was me. That was me going.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, all right, Tom. I appreciate you coming over and talking to me.
Yeah, man. I supposedly somebody.
I grill you hard, dude. I grill you hard, and you know why? You know why I grill you hard?
Because you love me. I love you too, CTV. Have a good night.
You too, man.
Later.